Hey everyone, I'm here with Brendan Roberts, production manager at Art on Products in Lively, Virginia, and a Screen Printing Rising Stars Award winner. Hey Brendan, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today.
Not a
Excited
problem.
to find out, why you are one of the winners of our fourth annual competition. So why don't we get started and just share, how did you get your start in the industry?
I was fortunate enough to have parents who could sort of mentor me and already had a well-established business that I was fortunate enough to be a part of and rise through the ranks of the business. Like all fathers, at least most fathers, I think, would like to see their children start from nothing and work their way up to at least what they had, if not more. And my dad was no different. I started from the time I could walk, either assembling boxes, packing glasses, sweeping floors, you name it. It's just every little job. There's always something to be done in a factory. And so that went on forever and ever and ever, spending days here after school, spending summers working here, and then every summer having slightly more responsibility as time went on. Then went to school, went to college to do something completely different, not involved in the same industry at all. Decided I didn't like that and thought I would come back home and try and bring the business into the future, bring technology to our small little business. Because historically, my father is very I don't want to say suspicious of change, but if something is working, why do you want to change it? Like, change and progress are not always the same thing. There is change without progress, and there is never progress without change. So he's very, very careful about making sure that any change that I want to make or my sister want to make is in fact actual progress and not just change for the sake of change. So we've been able to achieve that happily. But it's taken a long time. My sister and I have both been involved heavily for the better part of a decade now. And the business has changed dramatically. It's barely recognizable from what it was 10 years ago. But that's where it all started. Mom and dad started this back in 1986. Very, very small. They might have produced 500 to 600 articles a day was an awesome day for them. And then now, if we do anything less than 46,000 in a day, that's a bad day. So it's very, very different now. But it's better. It's much better. The family's grown, so the business has grown. We have more people here. We have more families that are being supported by our business than at any other time in the company's history. And so it's a very, very happy little tight-knit community around here.
That's great. And I'm sure your parents are very proud to know that you and your sister are involved and to see the business grow over these last few decades. You talked a little bit about this, but can you just share your experience overall working for a family business? And do you have any tips for other screen printers who are in similar situations, how to make it work?
Working inside of any family business can be challenging at times. It's a double-edged sword. When things are fantastic and great, everybody is flourishing and benefiting from it. But when things are not so awesome, it can kind of bring everybody down because there's no escaping it. If you go to work and you have a bad day and you go home and you live near your family or you talk to your family frequently through the phone, social media, Zoom meetings, whatever. If there was a bad day at work, everybody's bummed. So it just casts a whole gray cloud over your whole family until you do something to make it go away. So as far as tips go, you got to be able to separate work and your personal life as much as you can, but it's very hard to do when they're two sides of the same coin. Family is your business and your business is your family. It's very, very hard to separate them. But it's very important to be clear that if your family think you're irritated at something, a problem, for example, you've got to be sure to communicate that you're angry at the problem. You're not angry at them. You're not angry at them for creating it. You just need to be sure that everybody understands why you're troubled and that it has nothing to do with them. It's like, you're still my sister at the end of the day. You're still my mom. You're still my dad. That we'll get past this. Don't worry. So just it's either going to make a strong family stronger, or if you're not lucky, it can really break you down. I've heard from other people locally that own businesses, not in the same industry, but there was a heating and ventilation company that was started by two brothers, and they were doing well for 2 years. Ended up hating each other, and they split. They started two separate businesses, and now they don't really talk to each other anymore. Their kids don't hang out. Like it's whenever money is involved with family, it can be challenging. It can really be challenging. So it's uh, you just have to be careful, and just be nice. Just be nice to your family. They're your family. I mean, at the same time, don't let any one of them take advantage of you, but you should not be trying to take advantage of them either. So a rising tide carries all ships. If everything's great, brings everybody up. If everything's bad, it can kind of wear you down. So just be optimistic, be happy. You are your family's cheerleader. Cheer them along. We're trying really hard to be successful as a family and keep this thing rolling.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Obviously, you want your family to succeed and you want yourself to succeed. So probably don't go into business if you already have a lot of family issues or arguments are happening all the time. Better to
Make sure you all handle money well, because if you all disagree on how to handle money, more money won't solve those problems. That will just make them worse. Yeah, that may be too specific for some of these other folks that want to do work in family businesses, but I think it's important. Just be sure you're all thinking in a similar vein, and that you're in it for the overall success of your family. You're not just in it for the overall success of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And communication and trust you mentioned as well too, for sure.
Oh, for sure. That's absolutely critical. You've got to be 100% clear with what you want. That in turn, they need to be clear with you and what they want. If you all make your expectations known of each other, then it should be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned a little bit of your dad being maybe, hesitant to change, and then being able to come in as a younger voice with ideas on about new technology. That's obviously an advantage for your business and for your family.
Definitely.
So your nomination form states, and I'm going to read here, you're committed to glass decoration and all things related to screen printing, both the actual applications and the advancement of automation to increase production and remain competitive domestically, while lowering your company's energy consumption with efforts to lessen the use of your layer ovens. So what motivates you to make your business and our industry as a whole better?
I'd love to claim that it was strictly out of altruism and consciousness for our environment and all the rest of it. Of course, there's a certain level of that, but no, it's more about when my parents started this business. They started it shortly after they moved to a very rural area in Virginia where there were not a whole lot of jobs available, and the ones that were available weren't appealing. Dad didn't want to be a fisherman and he didn't want to be a farmer. So what are you to do? So there was a lot of tourism going on. So we started a souvenir shop, and they had glassware, got crabs printed on mugs and stuff, because we're out here on the Chesapeake Bay, and those sold well, and he couldn't get enough of them. So let's print them ourselves. And so that's what they started doing. And before long, the business grew, and now you've got 8 employees, 10 employees, 20 employees, got 40 employees, and you've made a lot of jobs in an area where there weren't that many to choose from. And so you see all of these people that have their own families and all their own children. And some of these people, we're on second generation employees now. People's children are coming to work for us that have retired. And so this is great. We really want to keep this going. But at the same time, it's hard to stay competitive producing products in the United States when it's so much less expensive to get them out of Canada or China or sometimes even Italy. Like there's competition from the entire planet to make the best product. And so you can't labor your way out of this problem. You can't throw labor at this problem and expect it to be cost effective. You have to have some technology on your side. You have to have a certain level of automation. But my goal is to not automate to a point where I need no workers, because that doesn't suit my purpose. I want to keep these people employed. I love my staff. Some of these people have been working for us for 27 years or more now. So my goal was to add technology to boost productivity with the people that we had by taking some of the physical burden of the actual labor away from them, so that they're able to continue to do this longer. Now my focus is in some of these people don't want to retire or can't retire. So how can I gainfully employ them into their 50s, into their 60s, maybe even beyond that, safely, effectively, and in a way that protects their job for the long term. And so using automation, better technology, these are what I want to accomplish. I want to keep my group, my wonderful group of staff, employed as long as possible. So the whole thing's always been proudly made in the US, will always be made in the US. Almost all our glassware is produced here in the United States. Most of our equipment is produced here in the United States. Our screens are made in the United States. The ink is made in the United States. Maybe a few things that come out of, outside of the United States, but that's okay. But as much as possible, we're trying to do things here in the US, in Virginia, in lively Virginia. It's just better for the community.
That I really love to hear what you're saying about your employees, their longevity in your business, even past an age of potential retirement, and
Mhm.
even if you're bringing in more automation. I'm sure that helps with retention, knowing that when they come in, there is a career path for them that isn't just a couple years.
Yeah, like I say, most folks here want to stay here. They like what they do, and so getting our production costs down as much as possible to be able to pay them as much as possible has been my goal for the last 10 years or so. So, the old part of the industry still will use these large high fire kilns, these Lears. We have a few of them and we still use them, but we need to get their energy consumption down because more than ever, the cost of energy keeps going up. Well, it's irresponsible for us to use them in an irresponsible way. So if the goal is to reduce our costs, well, reducing our energy reduces our costs. So it's the two good things. If we can save some money and hey, it saves a bunch of CO2 going up in the atmosphere, although that's great, let's do that. So like I say, it's not strictly altruistic. It comes down to the bottom line. But that's how you're going to get more businesses to make positive changes to their emissions. So you got to make it easy. You've got to make it a benefit to them. And so we've made the benefit ourselves. We found a few ways to lower our total energy consumption. We found some inks that don't require as much energy. So we've done an awful lot to reduce total energy consumption, and that saves on cost tremendously. And we just pass that on to our staff, or we pass it on to our customers. We have we will not run around the industry saying that we have the least expensive glassware in the business, because that's a race to the bottom. We don't want to do that. That's not a great thing to do. What we're trying to do is create the best product for the best price, and at the same time have the highest margin as possible so that we can pass it on to our staff. I don't want to employ 1,000 people and 800 of them are on food stamps because I can't pay them well enough to do that sort of thing. I want them to make a meaningful living, something that they can have a family with, like the way it used to be, 45 years ago, or however long it was when a guy could, work in a factory and make enough money to own a house and send his kids to school and do all the rest of that. I want that to perpetuate. And the only way forward to do that is to cut our production costs as much as possible, but without sacrificing product quality. So you've got to balance these things as much as possible.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're definitely working toward that. When did you really start considering, the importance of lowering your energy consumption? When did those conversations start happening?
Believe it or not, they started with my ink supplier. So I don't know if it's copacetic to share all of these companies over this recording or not.
Yeah.
So there was a very, very nice man named Paul Tomko who was working for an ink company a number of years ago, probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And he was explaining to me that technology's changed. There's a bunch of new ink chemistries out there that allow you to produce printed glassware with either more vibrant colors than you could get with high fire enamels, or lower energy cost or lower total part cost than what had been available previously. And my father and I were both kind of reluctant to change what we had because, like I said, change and progress are not always the same thing. We have to be convinced that it's actually progress and not just change. And so a number of years went by. We didn't really think anything of it. And then one day, Paul said, "Hey, Brendan, I want you to try this new ink. You still need to put it through your oven, but nowhere near as hot. And it should be just as durable. And you've now got a larger color palette at your disposal. And I said, well, that's interesting. Let's give it a shot. And before you know it, we started moving hundreds and hundreds of thousands of articles allocated to that production process off the bat. And that was a tremendous decrease in energy consumption. But more importantly, it was about a 2 or 3-fold increase in total output. So lower energy, higher output, it's a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you do this? And so, Paul kind of held our hand on this, and it's like, well, this is, I think this is what you should be doing. You can realize, and I'm usually pretty skeptical about when a salesman comes to me and says, I got this wonderful product. It's going to make these great changes. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. You're going to be, I'm usually pretty skeptical about that sort of thing. But Paul was 100% right. He was 100% correct that it was a viable solution to our production needs. And after a year or so of adopting that, I went back to Paul. I said, well, what do you got now? What's new? Like, let's see what's out there. And so every couple of years, there's a slight change in chemistry or some new equipment available or whatever. And I don't run out and buy all of it because that's reckless, but I do pay attention to what suits my needs. But more importantly than that, there are a lot of times when something that suits our needs perfectly, like a piece of equipment, for example, there's nothing that suits our needs perfectly. So we will either build something which suits our needs perfectly, or we will adapt something that suits our needs closely. We'll adapt it to make it fit perfectly. And Paul has helped us with that an awful lot. And so now he works for Marabou, and we have almost 100% switched all of our organic colors over to Marabou, and we're very, very pleased with what we're seeing. The color quality is tremendous. The durability is as good as what we were accustomed to. But most importantly, it's more sustainable. It's much more sustainable. It's a product that has no lead or cadmium, no heavy metals. So this is something that's safe to send anywhere in the planet. In fact, some of my son's baby bottles are printed with these inks. They're so inert and safe. So, but they've managed to make them just like they're no compromise. Like you haven't made a compromise in quality to achieve this level of sustainability and product safety. So those are all really important things to us.
And we should give Paul a little shout out. He did nominate you for this award. So
he did. Paul has been he's definitely helped steer us in terms of adopting new technologies and new inks. So he's lit the way for us, and it was just up to us to take that step. So
yeah, it can be very helpful to find someone who either is a product manager or a really good sales rep that can help you share new technology and give you ideas to help grow your business.
Or in Paul's case, Paul has been in the industry for a very long time, every bit as long as my father has. But he has done everything from selling screen mesh to screen mesh chemicals to ink. So he has a knowledge base which covers many different facets of the industry, which is important. Like you have to know, like screen printing, whether you're doing t-shirts or whether you're doing cylinders for glassware or something like that, it's equal parts art and science. Like you've got to be able to blend the two of these things. Like I have my best printer out here is a tattoo artist in his spare time, and he's the best at this because he has this head for art and this brain for science. And Paul clearly has the same grasp, the same knowledge base, where you blend experience with your own intelligence, and you are able to solve many problems. But you see how all of these things are connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely a mix between art and science for sure. That's interesting that it's also a tattoo artist. I think that we've seen that a few times. I know there's a shop in Florida that half of their building, their brick and mortar, is a tattoo shop and half of it is a screen printing shop.
You know what? I don't think they're unique. I'm sure there are many of those. I think, designing really radical t-shirts and some really good ink on your arms I think there's some pretty good parallels between those. So yeah, like we have quite a few people that have quite a, good eye for art and good hands to create it, which is something I completely lack. My brother is a phenomenal artist, and I didn't get a single art gene in my body. So
It's funny how some of those things don't get passed on or just get passed on to one sibling in the family. But
I
it seems like you have your other talents that are working well for yourself and the business. So my last question to you is, what is your greatest accomplishment to date?
We've done some pretty cool things over the last 10 years or so. To pick one is actually very, very tough.
Okay. Well, I don't want it to be too tough for you. Maybe top two, three.
So our business is, and this is probably true of all screen printing businesses, but they're a system. So, from taking an order to creating the art, setting it up for a screen, to making a screen, to setting up the machine, to printing the article, like it's a whole big system. And so no one change to any aspect of that is going to be huge. Like, I mean, and the other thing too is you have one change that's going to affect everything else down the line. So we've changed our pre-press over the years. We've changed our color mixing. We've changed our actual production equipment. We've changed our finishing equipment. So we've changed a lot of stuff. But the one accomplishment I think that can kind of bring it all together is that in the last 2-3 years, we developed a fully automated printing system, which just takes blank product in one end and a screen that was set up on the machine pretty easily by just about any one of my staff members. This is a self-learning, fully automated printing press that I could teach you to operate in 5 minutes. So it demystifies and takes quite a lot of the hard science knowledge that's required to make this machine operate. It takes that and distills it into intelligence in the machine. So anybody is able to approach this machine and very quickly be producing good quality products. And the labor aspect of it, physically loading the machine yourself and unloading it and inspecting, that's all done by the machine. So you're able to kind of sit back, tend it, make sure everything looks okay and is going all right. But more or less, it takes a huge labor burden off the operator. Now it's taken a long time to achieve this. It's been in the back of my head for about 9 or 10 years, but never really had the resources or the knowledge base to put it all together and make it happen. So about 3 years ago, I started working on this in my spare time in the workshop, taking old equipment, putting parts together, adding new equipment wherever we could, new components to it wherever we could. And there's a local business that we use for our IT software. Well, the guy who owns that's actually a very good friend of mine, and he's a very, very good computer programmer. And so between the two of us, we were able to make this machine. And I don't think there's really anything like it out there in the industry. And I've been asked, when am I going to put it on sale? The answer is I'm not. This is mine. This is for my staff. This is for us to have and for us to perpetuate and keep. We're going to build more of these for ourselves. I don't know, a handful of them. But the goal was to stay competitive in a rapidly changing and rapidly growing marketplace. And so to have this, I'm not going to call it cutting edge, but it's definitely a unique piece of equipment. To have the ability to make and maintain and use this piece of equipment is very, very special to us. We're pretty proud of it, and I would share more info about it, but like I said, I'm going to try and keep that one to myself. But it encompasses all of the changes, all of the progress that we've made over the last 10 years or so into one area. It has the best artwork processing capability we've ever had. It has the best total print quality we've ever had. It is the easiest machine to set up because the knowledge and the experience of a really well-trained operator is distilled into the machine itself. So you can take a novice and turn them into a pro immediately by putting them in front of this machine. But that is because my father and I sat down and figured out how to, like, what questions do we need to ask the operator? What matters to being able to set this machine up successfully? So we have all of my experience and the 30 something years of my dad's experience just poured into this machine's brain, for lack of a technical term. to create something that is truly magical. It's just wonderfully productive without being intimidating to the operator. Because there's some machines that exist out there for screen printing that, oh my God, they got so many buttons, so many different options, so many different things to change. And that's great. You need it in order to change from, if you wanted to do a jar and then immediately switch to a wine. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to change, but if you intimidate your operator or even potential operators, it's going to limit who has the ability to work on this thing. And so we live in a rural area. I keep mentioning that, but our work pool is very small. So we can't pull on these, large numbers of people to come in and interview 100 and get one hire that is potentially capable of operating this thing. We've got to be able to employ a greater number of people, but yet still get the same level, quality level of product out of them. And so this was the only way to achieve that and still be competitive.
Well, congratulations on that build. And it seems like that's going to be very successful for your business and very helpful for new employees or employees who are on board, and it's a better fit for them. Sounds awesome. I wish I could know more, but I understand the proprietariness of it all. But yeah, well, Brendan, it was great getting to know you and your business more. Congratulations on becoming a Screen Printing Rising Stars Award winner. And I look forward to seeing more of what you do in the coming years.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.